Last night, former New York Times columnist Barry Weiss releasing the second installment of the Twitter files. It includes images of what appears to be an internal Twitter system that marked certain accounts as being blacklisted in certain ways. For example, one was marked as a, quote, trends blacklist, another as a, quote, search blacklist. I want to bring in California Congressman who found himself at the center of the Twitter files saga just a week ago. Representative Khanna joins us this morning. Congressman, it's nice to see you, sir. You did get a nice little cameo in this Twitter files saga, and raising the issue. Really, I think the only person, at least that we saw in Congress, especially on the Democratic side, suggesting that those Hunter Biden files, or at least the article, should not be blacklisted. What have you made of what you've now seen from inside this reporting?
Well, Andrew, I believe that Twitter is the modern public square. And it's one thing to say they shouldn't have released sensational pictures about Hunter Biden, which I agree with. But to censor the New York Post, to prevent sharing of articles, that's just wrong. And I stand by what I wrote. And I hope that they will not do that in the future. Even though they are not obligated to live up to the First Amendment, they shouldn't be censoring journalists or things that they disagree with.
Do these new series of what might be described as tweet reports, lead you to have more questions, less questions? Are you glad that they're going through all of this? I mean, there's some people who think that this is great. There are others who think that this is political or something else. Others who worry about the privacy, by the way, of Twitter employees or former employees and the like, and email addresses. By the way, your email address, I believe, was exposed in all of this. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that transparency is important and good. Look, I don't mind that it happened to me. It wasn't ideal. I could get further security of my account. I do think they need to be sensitive to non-public figures, to lower-level employees, and making sure their personal information and emails aren't being leaked. But here's the bigger question, Aaron. Republicans are rightfully concerned about censorship. Democrats tend to be concerned about respect. You don't want people on these platforms who are spewing anti-Semitism, who are spewing racism. And this is a conversation we need to have as a country. Right. What is that balance? And so I think the more transparency, the files being released. I've even said I'm open to hearings in Congress, in a Republican Congress, as long as they're not about gotcha politics. What did President Biden do? What did Trump do? But more about the broader questions of free speech and censorship.
Aaron's a much better writer than I am. But want to turn to talking about hearings. Sam Bankman-Fried tweeted this morning that he's willing to testify.
Did I say Aaron? I apologize. I apologize.
You don't need to. By the way, I'll take being mistaken with Aaron any day of the week. But to this point about SBF and this hearing, what do you expect that we could possibly hear? And do you expect him to testify in person?
Andrew, I did listen to your interview, which was, I thought, very thoughtful. I think there are two different questions. One is just garden variety wrongdoing. And many of us thought that Sam Bankman-Fried was innovative. No one would have expected, or very few expected, that what could have been going on is he was taking people's money and spending it without their consent. And that's just wrong, no matter what the industry is. The second issue that needs to be looked at is blockchain and having greater regulation. Right. Look, I have a lot of confidence in Gary Gensler and the CFTC. I think they need more authority. I think it's unfair to be blaming them. I think what we need to be doing in Congress is figuring out how they have more authority to actually regulate. And Gensler has been sounding the alarm about some of the excesses of blockchain for a long time.